Yes, it's day 2 of the Grand National meeting, and joining me, David Jennings. And good morning, Cheltenham, is Paul Kealy, Bruce Millington and Rory Delargy. For the next hour or so, we're going to be talking you through all the races on Friday at Aintree. I'm going to be looking back at a spectacular performance, or was it, from Constitution Hill yesterday. Shishkin got the job done. We knew he would, didn't we? Of course we did. And we're going to look ahead to everything that's happening on Friday. Bruce Millington, Racing Post royalty, joins us on the show. We got the checkbook out. We got him in. How we got him here, I'll never know. But he is here. Bruce, Constitution Hill. G-Rod sat in this position yesterday. And let's just say people weren't happy when he suggested that he mightn't just be at his peak yesterday. He was right.
It's brilliant, wasn't it? The highlight of the day was G-Rod getting it right there. It was brilliant because he just sits there and G-Rod works hard. People think he just spouts these opinions and just plucks them out of thin air, but he puts the work in like all the lads do. And all he said was that the horse might bounce. Now, people suggest horses will bounce all the time, but for some reason, people couldn't get their heads around the fact that Constitution Hill might. So it was a massive, great Twitter pile-on. G-Rod said, I think he'll win by 3 lengths. And the horse ran £10 below his best on RPRs and won by 3 lengths. And, you know, it does just make me laugh that people have these, you know, interesting views, bit left field, and there's this like mad adverse reaction. I don't get it. If you want people to just sit there and say obvious stuff from the form book, I mean, anyone can do that, as I'm probably about to prove in the next course of a half hour. But, you know, G-Rod comes up with some great opinions, and he got it absolutely right yesterday. So, well done, G-Rod. I thought that was magnificent. Doesn't
always get it right now, just to clarify. But he got it right yesterday. So, well done, G-Rod. You're right about Constitution Hill. On Constitution Hill, Bruce, underwhelmed?
Yeah, a little bit, but I mean that does happen at the end of a season, doesn't it? You know, it was still great. I mean, De Boinville was in total control. It's just, you know, we don't know what he's going to do next. So I'd like to see him go over fences, and not much else he can do over hurdles. So hopefully he'll go over fences. But Hendo being Hendo, I could see it. What do you think? I think he'll start. I think he'll jump a hurdle before he jumps a fence next.
I think there is not a hope in hell he will jump a fence. Even yesterday, read Nicky Henderson's quotes, watch the interview. He's getting a bit nervous, Rory. I don't think we'll see this horse over fences.
So listen, Nicky gets. If Nicky's getting nervous, that's probably more of a sign that he might go over fences. And he actually did say this might be the horse's last run over hurdles, which I was slightly surprised by. My thinking of this has always been that Nicky would want to stay over hurdles and Michael Buckley would want to go over fences. And that's probably true, but Nicky really worries about his top horses. So if he's nervous about the thought of this horse going chasing, he might like to play it safe with hurdles, but he'll be getting nervous because he gets nervous about all his best horses. He's the most nervous trainer in the country, quite frankly. And when he's relaxed, it's always a bad sign.
Here's what I think, Paul Kealy, okay? I think yesterday probably proved that he's never going to win a Gold Cup, because I don't think he improved for the step up in trip. And I think with Constitution Hill, the dream is to do a dawn run, to win a champion hurdle, to win a Gold Cup. I think yesterday proved he's more about speed than stamina. And for that reason, I think he'll stay over.
I never form too many firm opinions on races that come after Cheltenham. I mean, the one thing you know about that is they'll have barely done anything with him. You know what I mean? The Aintree Hurdle is an afterthought compared to the champion hurdle. You know, he got there, he got the job done. They didn't have to be flash or anything with him. They went slowly. It turned into a sprint, and he got the jump. I wouldn't mark that down as a sign that he's not going to get any further at all. It was just a race at the end of the season. Whether they just, I mean, he is so fast. Whether they just decide to stay over 2 miles over hurdles or go champion chase route, I wouldn't know. But you know, if they decide that, you know, if the plan originally was to go for the Gold Cup, I mean, it's fanciful anyway. So it's why only one horse has ever done it. Then probably they will end up staying over hurdles. If they decide that he isn't going to stay 3 miles, then they probably will end up staying over hurdles.
Well, time will tell. What kind of form are you in? How are your confidence levels? How did yesterday go?
Well, it's funny because, you know, all the ones I liked at short prices won. But I'm more likely to have more on a 14 to 1 shot than I am on a 2 to 1 shot. So, you know, I nicked a couple of quid, but it wasn't special. And, you know, the handicappers I backed ran absolutely dreadful. So, but, you know, nicked a few quid. I was left, you know, I was annoyed more than anything after Banbridge won the opener, because I was left thinking what might have been at Cheltenham, because the ground wasn't that bad on the chase course at Cheltenham on Thursday. The time suggested that. In fact, the time of the Turners at Cheltenham was against RP Standard was a similar time against RP Standard as this one was. So, you know what I mean, it was certainly no worse than good to soft on the Thursday, and he'd have got away with it.
So we had a pint last night and you said, oh, I actually had a good day, I backed a few winners, but I didn't tip any of them in the paper, and you were disappointed. Which do you prefer, when you tip them in the paper or when you back them?
It's professional pride. You like to get the winners. You like to get the winners in the paper. I'm just one of those people, you know, I don't see the point in telling people to back in a 5-4 shot or 2-1 shot. Like, you know what I mean, anyone can do that.
Like Bruce is going to do today.
You know what I mean? You know, we're all going to put up short, you know, if you can't find one against it, but you'll say, I think the favourite will win. But if I'm, you know, going to put bets in the paper, I don't want to be telling people to back a 2-1 shot. I mean, they can work that out for themselves. I want to try and come up with something a bit original. That's the way I've always done it. So, yeah, I failed to find any winners yesterday for the paper, and that's the most important thing.
Okay, but your pocket is okay. Bruce Millington, Shishkin, can he win a King George? Can he win a Gold Cup?
Yeah, he can win a King George, yeah. It was interesting yesterday, wasn't it? On ITV, before the race, there was some really good stuff. Ruby was saying that the horse seemed much happier in himself before the race. And they showed a bit of footage of him at Cheltenham sulking like mad. And Kate said that on the show yesterday, that he just didn't seem right from the word go. But yesterday, they spoke to all the connections. He bounced and he was all absolutely fine. So vibes-wise, if you put stock in that kind of thing, it was all there. I thought I didn't particularly think he was going to win until Ahoy Senor messed up at the last. But look, it's a glittering CV, isn't it? But it's also got some stains on it, so it's a really interesting horse.
Well, he looked beat, didn't he?
Yeah.
He didn't jump that well. He looked beat. But the one thing he's always had is courage in spades. He tries every time, even when he was getting beat, even when he got thumped in the Tingle Creek early this year, he still put his head down and ran to the line. Every time, whatever he's got, he'll give. It depends on what sort of form he's in, but he's a great horse, isn't he?
Rory, have you ever known a horse to change so much in such a short space of time? So obviously won the Supreme Speed, won the Arkle Speed. It's like Ronaldo going from being a striker to like a gritty centre half. Like, he's completely changed in a couple of years, hasn't he, Shishkin?
He has, but then again, you know, you talked about him yesterday, and you look back at his Novice Hurdle campaign and his Novice Chase campaign. Although he was ultimately impressive at those trips, you can sort of stop his races at various points and say, look, he doesn't look entirely happy there. He looked in trouble at one point in the Supreme and came home really strongly. And the thing, because his finish is so strong, it tends to blot out any memories of anything that might have gone wrong in the race. When he won at Kempton as a novice chaser, he was I think the first horse off the bridle that day, and looked briefly at the top of the straight, looked like he might be in trouble, and then he's powered away from him, and you forget about that. But then when you see him in the Ryanair, then you're reminded that, you know, he's sometimes behind the bridle, and he sometimes does look like he's not as fast a jumper as some, and that's the thing. He got away with it against lesser horses as a novice chaser. He spent a bit of time in the air, and then when push came to shove, when he was asked for an effort, the engine came in. But against specialist 2-milers, he struggled a little bit. We forget that against an Energumen last year at Ascot, he looked beaten all the way until about 100 yards from home. And then he really... Now,
how on earth did an Energumen beat him over 2 miles? Like, do you know what I mean?
Or how did he beat? Yes, yeah.
Or how did he? Sorry, yeah. I know Shishkin beat him, but how did an Energumen? Like, how did an Energumen not hammer him over 2 miles?
Well, the irony is the tactics they used that day suited an Energumen well enough, but they thought they needed to draw the finish out of Shishkin, which is exactly the opposite of what they needed to do. What they needed to do was create a false pace to halfway and then do him for speed, you know, at a crucial stage of the race, whereas they actually played into his hands in that race. And again, I mean, it was a funny old run from him yesterday, but again, it's what he finds from the last when he looks beaten that's the key. I think you got him spot on. I agreed with your comments about him yesterday. I know you think that it didn't pan out the way you thought it would,
at all.
But I think a small field is key to him, because he doesn't seem to like being... he can't get himself out of trouble quickly. He doesn't like being amongst horses. You see him kind of drop back a little bit sometimes in his races, and it's when he gets daylight that he then can show what he can do. And in a big field, he can get himself in trouble. Your point yesterday was, if you look at his form in small fields, even against the best horses, it's almost unimpeachable. But you stick him in a big field, and he gets himself in trouble most of the time.
I think with Shishkin, I have to hold my hands up. I got the result right, but I got the theory completely wrong. I thought he'd be out wide, loads of space, and Nico puts him right at the inside, jumping into the back almost of a high senior. So I feel like I played terribly, but I actually won the match. So anyway, Shishkin won. We got our charity bet up. That's all that matters. That was Thursday at Aintree. Let's have a look at Friday. That's what you're here for. And we're going to kick off with the Mildmay Novices Chase. And is it going to be redemption for Jerry Calam, who's now your 4-6 favourite? It's 7-2 Braun. Complete Unknown is 11-2. It is 12-1 Gallia de la Toe. 22-1 Thomas Darby, and Shala Jack is your 80-1 outsider of the 6 runners. Bruce Millington, we're going to kick off with you here. Jerry Colomb, for many people, will basically form the day for so many punters. Are you with him at 4-6? Are you going to put him in multiples, or are you against him?
With him, yeah, he's solid. He's so solid. He's so tough. He's so game. He's so consistent.
That's a lot of souls.
Yeah, but that's not bad, is it?
Yeah,
you want all those boxes ticked. I think 4-6 is just about fair. I think he's a good favourite. I think he's a good foundation stone for multiples. I could see if you wanted to play him to beat Braun as a straight forecast, I think that's a perfectly defensible play as well. So. Boring start, but if they win, you don't mind, you're off and running.
Boring winner is perfect, Bruce. Good start. Paul Kealy, you've just said you hate tipping favourites. What are you going to do here?
Yeah, I hate tipping favourites. I also hate tipping favourites that want soft ground when they're running on good ground. So, I mean, I'm going to take him on, although you have to say that the vast majority of the horses in the race want soft ground as well, so it's the same for everybody. But no, I can't get involved at 4-6. He'd probably win. I was impressed with Complete Unknown when he won at Kempton. I don't think he was anywhere near his best when he got beat by Gallia de Lito on what was absolutely bottomless ground the time before, but he improved and won very easily last time. I think he'll stay 3 mile and think he might give him a race. I'm not saying to beat him, but if I have a bet, it'll be a small bet on him.
Excellent. Rory, the opener.
Yeah, this would have been a race that I would have had more interested in softer ground. Mainly because I think it's important for a Complete Unknown. When he was beaten at Warwick, as you said, I think he allowed, or his rider allowed Gallia de Lito to dictate terms, and she controlled the race and he couldn't get his rhythm as a result. Otherwise, he's been very good. I was impressed with how he won at Foss last, even though he didn't win by very far. And then he bolted up at Kempton last time out when he was allowed to get into his own rhythm. His jumping was very good, but I think soft ground's really important for him. He really came into his own when he won the EBF final at Sandown last year. I think he'd be taken off his feet on good ground. What will happen here, I'm fairly sure, is that Braun will travel best. And that makes it a little bit, but I just don't think Braun's a thorough stayer at 3 miles, even on a sharpish track. So the question here is whether Braun can let the pace slacken a little bit in front to try to catch the favourite out, because the favourite doesn't quicken immediately. He's the best horse in the race, Jerry Colomb. He will gallop all the way to the line. We saw at Cheltenham that he can be caught out when the pace quickens in a race. And if Braun doesn't go, eyeballs out in front and can slow it down a little bit, that might get Jerry Colomb in a little bit of trouble.
Does Davy Russell not just pop Jerry Colomb out in front today?
Possibly. I don't think so, though. It is a possibility. I think he'd be happy enough to
the mare could go off
Braun
in front as well.
She can do,
yeah.
I'm not sure whether she does this time. She was gifted that at Warwick, wasn't she? She didn't go to the front at Kempton, which was disappointing. I think she's got a bit to find. I know that Dan Skelton likes her a lot, but her form, as I said, I think Warwick's a wee bit flattering to her.
She probably needs the mud more than anything else as well.
Yeah.
I think in terms of getting Jerry stoked up, because he does need that. I think that massive great run between the second last and the last at Aintree could actually help him.
Yeah,
I think
point,
he could really get him going now. I mean, it's almost like they've removed the fence there, isn't it? It's such a long run that, but I think that could play into his hands there.
Okay. But I think if you're backing him at 4-6, you probably won't rest easy on your bet throughout the race. I think he'll make slightly hard work of it, but I think he'll just stay a little bit too strongly for Braun. It's not the ideal setup, but he probably gets it done.
Excellent. So that is our Mildmay Novices Chase, and you'll see the selections on the screen. It is pretty much a ringing endorsement for Jerry Colomb, but Paul Kealy thinks perhaps a Complete Unknown could give him most to do. Now, before we get stuck into a red-hot handicap hurdle, have you joined the Racing Post Members Club? If you haven't, shame on you. There's 50% off the first 3 months if you join the Racing Post Members Club. You get the digital newspaper at 9 o'clock the night before. You get award-winning journalism from our top journalists. You get tips, you get premium tips published daily, and you get race research support and everything you need.
Hello and welcome to a very special racing quiz.
And you're the team captain, and I'm scared of you, so you can.
What are you tapping at that?
Choose your weapons, gents. 3, 4, Ruby was it, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my God, I'm having a mental breakdown here.
Fran lost. Yeah, I would have thought so, yeah. I would have thought so.
A fence at Cheltenham where you go like that.
Yeah, go. That'll be an entry, yeah. And so would the Fine Haven, and so would the Topham. They would all be an entry. Aintree.
Myself on the Paddy Power quiz, which you can catch on Racing TV and on YouTube. It was a good laugh, I have to say. I didn't expect to be on Space Hoppers, and I didn't expect Fran Berry to be so terrible on Space Hoppers either. But I actually won. I actually won that quiz, Bruce. You'll be surprised to know. But there you go. Good fun on the Paddy Power quiz. Moving on to the 220 at Aintree. It is the William Hill Handicap Hurdle, and it is Caprond. The cliff horse for so many here on the panel is currently 7-1 shot. Fenner Cross, very well bagged for John McConnell into 15-2. Captain Comby, the strong travelling Captain Comby, is 8-1. And it is 17-2 bar. Right, Paul Kealy? You are probably one of the founding members of the Caprond fan club. What do you do with Caprond today?
Well, I don't know. It's a weird one. I backed him at 25-1 for the last 2 Cold Cups, and then chucked it down with rain and ruined his chance. He nearly did it this time. And obviously last year, after finishing 4th at Cheltenham, he came out and he won pretty easily at Punchestown. Although then the Irish handicap had given him £3 back, while he's got £5 more this time, so he's actually higher in the weights than he was. Then, I don't know, the ground is good. The ground is absolutely bang on perfect for him, and he has run well at this track before. But if you look at the recent history of this race, in the last 10 years, only 3 horses who ran at Cheltenham have managed to win it, and only one of those managed to finish a race at Cheltenham. And that one finished like 14th in the Coral Cup, Clondor Kempthorpe, about 8-9 years ago.
Those are terrific stats.
So I just wonder, you know, when you've got these big handicaps, you're primed for one day, aren't you? Like, you know, and everything afterwards is an afterthought. So maybe look at the ones that either didn't run that well or missed it out altogether. Now, Darginini's been winning very, very easily. I like him out of the ones at the top of the betting because he didn't run at Cheltenham, and this could be the big target. But I have backed the 2 mares in the race, and one of them did run at Cheltenham. That was Molly Ollie's Wishes, and I thought she just travelled beautifully all the way round, and she moved onto the heels of the leaders, having been right out the back, going to the second last, and she looked to be going okay. And now she didn't pick up in the straight, but she did get knocked out of her stride by My Eye. As they went wide, and I just thought she's very well handicapped on old form. She dropped £7 or so from our highest mark.
He loves the old form.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong. But she is well handicapped. But if I like her, I've got to back Martello Sky as well, because obviously they were first and second in the mares listed race.
Run against each other all the time.
Exactly, they were first and second in the mares listed race at Weatherby in October, and Martello Sky is another one. She's just been running with credit while dropping down the handicap. And she's reasonably well treated again on her best form, and obviously Lucy Wadham has taken the trouble of booking Rachel Blackmore, and I just thought 2 of those at 20-1 or so.
2 old favourites.
I'll have a go at those.
Molly Ollie's Wishes and Martello Sky for Paul Kealy in the big handicap hurdle at 220. Have you found one here, Bruce?
No. Well, I mean, I hope I have, but how are you going to be confident about this? You know. It's a big field handicap, and you talked about it yesterday, Rory. I think you've described it as the conundrum of the Cheltenham versus Aintree form, and it ties you up in knots every year. Do you go with what your eyes have shown you at the big meeting of the year, or do you wait for fresh horses? I've gone with Buddy One here because I like that run in the Martin Pipe, and the Martin Pipe tends to be proper racing, doesn't it? You look at Banbridge won it last year, didn't he? And I think the form's quite solid. He's young, progressive, and I just felt he's slightly handicapped on the run-in at Cheltenham, just by being up the middle of the course. The JP horse who rear poses had the fence to help him, and Iroko won it. That was just an extraordinary run because he looked completely beat. So I think the form's okay, and I just think if you're getting plenty of extra places, I thought Buddy One was a half decent each way bet.
Excellent. So Buddy One for Bruce Millington. Rory Delargy, I think I found one here. Yes, I think I have. He's 25-1 with Paddy Power. It is Harbour Lake, who, when this horse ran over course and distance in December, I thought this race would be made for Harbour Lake. Won his first 2 starts at Weatherby. I thought he could be a potential star, probably a Grade 2 horse. Hasn't quite materialised, but I thought he ran much better last time at Kempton. He bumped into Outlaw Peter, who I think has got a great chance tomorrow. And I think Aintree really does suit him. Go back to that handicap hurdle in December. It's worked out really well. Walking on Air was in it. Benson was second, won since. All the form in around. Langerdan was 7, went on to win the Coral Cup. I think the form is strong. He's lower now, loves the track. I think Alan King has had this race in mind for Harbour Lake all season, and Harbour Lake is one of my strongest fancies of the day. So I've got that out of the way. Now the proper judge. Tell us what you think.
Well, I don't like 2.5 man handicap hurdles as a rule. There's an old gag about a very famous character actor called Valentine Dial, who was known as the Man in Black, and he had a great voice. He used to read like horror stories and stuff. And he went broke, and when he was in the insolvency court, he was asked to what he attributed his downfall, and he replied, 2.5 mile handicap hurdles.
That story cannot possibly be true.
That is absolutely true. Absolutely true. A story told by Jeffrey Bernard.
I love him.
You could probably fit any race into that story.
You could, but that is exactly what he said. 2.5 mile handicap hurdles,
okay.
And it's just it's a blind spot for me. I've gone for Captain Conby in the race because I thought he travelled. I liked him at Cheltenham on the basis of how well he ran as a novice here last year. He might have finished in the 3 in the Grade 1 novice over course and distance last year, but he fell at the second last when staying on from the back. He always catches the eye in his races. I don't think he stays 3 miles. He was tried over 3 miles earlier in the season and didn't quite get home. Maybe he's the kind of horse who always travels and never quite gets there. And as you said, backing horses who caught the eye at Cheltenham in this race has not been a great route to profit. But I decided to stick with him. But there wasn't a huge amount of confidence. You might have a really good point there with Harbour Lake. I actually was with. He caught my eye in that race in December as well, but unfortunately I went and backed him next time when he disappointed.
In the Lanzarote,
yeah, exactly. And
the ground.
But the ground was awful. Everything hated the ground. Only 4 finished in the Lanzarote. So I backed a couple of horses there who I thought I'd spotted who were going to win races. WizKid was the other one who was one of the last one standing before he pulled up. And I backed him 6 places, so that was a real kick in the teeth for me. I backed Harbour Lake that day, and that's kind of, once you've gone in and you've got that disappointment, you're slightly wary of going in again. But I think you've probably got the right idea here, leaving him alone in those races and then backing him again back at Aintree, especially on better ground. So you could easily talk me round there, but as I said, I've come down on Captain Conby. I can see him travelling really well through this race. The question is what he will find off the bridle from the last hurdle. Hopefully enough.
Absolutely, very strong traveller is Captain Conby for Keith Donoghue, currently an 8-1 shot for Rory Delargy. I'm keeping my fingers crossed, one of my strongest fans of the week, each way, 25-1, Harbour Lake. It's Molly Ollie's Wishes, the lovable old mare for Paul Kealy, and it is Buddy 1 for Bruce Millington. That is your 220, your William Hill Handicap Hurdle. Moving on to the Poundland Top Novices Hurdle, and this is a corker. And how fitting in the Poundland Top Novices Hurdle that found a 50 should be your 130 favourite. It is 7-2 in the pocket. It is 9-2 Lucia. It is 7-1 the well-backed Hullenback. No Looking Back is 8-1. And it's 10-1 Bar. Bruce, we spoke about this before the show. You have a strong opinion here, and you just think this is simple.
I'm not saying not quite simple, but I think In the Pocket's got the best form. I think the Supreme is always the starting point for races like this, and he ran really well in it. I think his form's there for all to see. One might improve past him, but you can get 4 places on this race. So I think he's a cracking each way bet, and he's a good one for each way. Lucky 15s and whatever. I just thought it was a really, really solid run. I do love Outer Belly. I mean, he knocked my eye out, but I just don't know what he's been beating. So I'll probably have a little bit bet each way on him at double figures. But I think In the Pocket is a really, really solid option here.
And just listen to Tom Siegel talking yesterday. He said about Cheltenham horses, even if they're beaten at Cheltenham, for Aintree in mind, you want to see them finishing their races, not finishing really tired. And In the Pocket actually finished out his race quite well, I thought, at Cheltenham. So there could be more to come. Yeah,
I mean, I think the favourite is favourite because he's trained by Gordon Elliott. I think In the Pocket is a nice, solid horse for you today. Okay, In the Pocket for Bruce Millington at 7-2 with Paddy Power. Have you found something for us here, Keels?
Yeah, I do. I really like one of this. I was looking at it. My thing about the Supreme is that I didn't think it was a great race going into it. I think it might have been won by a very good horse, but I'm not 100% sure about the others in it. I really, really wanted to give either Hullenback or Outer Belly a chance. I mean, Outer Belly was almost a furlong clear to out of Carlisle. I mean, it was amazing, but he obviously didn't beat very much. Then I reminded myself that the first 8 home in the Supreme were Irish, and I wanted to look at something else Irish. Then I stumbled on No Looking Back, who's obviously been well back since, but you know, when you look at this horse, he's had 3 runs over hurdles. He went straight from a maiden hurdle to running in a match against last year's Fred Winter winner, Brazil, and he beat him despite jumping not very well at all. And then he ran against Irish Point just before Cheltenham in a graded race, in a grade 3. And now Irish Point sort of blew out in the Dublin Racing Festival, but the time before that he'd literally, you know, right alongside Marine Nationale, and that was at the World Bond.
Yeah, caught in the line.
In the World, caught on the line by Marine Nationale and the World Bond. Okay, didn't run so well at Leopardstown after that, but then wins this
second
grade.
on the Laurels of Naas as well, wasn't he?
Yeah,
So
you know, second in another grade 1. Beats in the pocket by a length and a quarter, but I love the way not in the pocket, no looking back, beats no looking back by a length and a quarter, but I love the way he went after him after the last. And then it suddenly dawned on me, hang on a minute, no looking back was giving him £9 as well. Like, you know, that to me puts him right up there amongst the best of them. And he was 16 to 1 the other day. I'm not even sure he should be as big as 8s, to be honest. I think he's got a right chance. Now the trainer, Oliver McKiernan, he had follow the plan.
Correct.
Yeah.
Win the bowl at 50 to 1 in 2012. He's only had 1 runner at Aintree since this festival since, and that was in 2013. So it's his first runner in 10 years, and I think he's got a pretty good one on his hands.
Shrewd operator is Oliver. No looking
And
back.
he's flying. 3 of his last 5 runners have won. 2 of them at 16 to 1 and 18 to 1.
He tends to be a very streaky trainer, doesn't he, Oliver McKiernan?
He does.
Yeah.
Good streak at the moment, though.
Yeah.
Are you a no looking back fan, Rory?
I've ended up sort of playing the percentages here. When I looked at this in the first place, I thought, you know, find a 50 is the one I want to be with. I like the upward curve of his form. He started the season in bumpers, and I thought his run behind the coming star, Corbett's Cross, last time was a good performance. I thought he'd come on for it, but I didn't think he'd be favourite for this. And initially I was like, well, in the pocket's the best horse in the race, but he's going to be too short. I want to be against him. Looked at the betting last night, in the pocket's 3rd favourite, and I thought, well, I've got to, you know, when you say you want to be against a horse at the price, you've got to know what that price is. And I thought the 9 to 2 that was available in the pocket last night was far too big. I'm slightly suspicious of him. I think he might not really want to battle. But in fairness, there's not that much evidence to say that. He hung a bit on the run-in at Cheltenham. He just hung a little bit, but as you said, he finished off well enough. That was over 2 miles. I thought the way the race was run would probably suit him with the Supreme, but 2.5 miles is almost certainly his trip, so step up and trip will suit. I can see him, he's the kind of horse I'd like to lay very short in running, but I couldn't believe that he was an each-way price in a race like this. And when the Irish have got the best horses, I do respect, I mean, no looking back's price when the market opened was slightly too big. He's probably, Kealy's has probably nicked all the value about him, but yeah, he's interesting enough. But in the pocket, yeah, if he stays around that sort of price, I think he can't be out of the 3 surely, which is a dangerous thing to say. But I can't see him on places.
You can get 4.
Yeah, you get 4 places. It just seems daft to try to keep going with that. I must oppose this horse when there's such a safe bet back in each way. So.
I think 2 of the last 3 winners came out of the Supreme as well, so it's not like there's any evidence of kind of the Supreme leaving a really heavy mark.
No,
of course, this was John Bond against El Fabiola last year.
Of course, yeah.
Excellent, there we go. So in the pocket is just too big of a price for Rory and Bruce. The one that you haven't mentioned, who I think you'll see a different performance today, is Lucia. The vibes were very poor going into Cheltenham. A bit like Shishkin, the vibes were very poor. I think you could see a different Lucia here.
If you'd hung around in the pub last night, we had a long debate about Lucia.
See, I'm quite professional.
Yeah.
I want to be in bed early. My voice will be okay for today. You straggler stayed on, didn't you?
That's because you said you were coming back. I felt
Never
bad
listen to me.
I felt bad about leaving. But yeah, listen.
What happened?
Yes,
What did I miss?
The vibes about Lucia weren't negative for most people. Most of us thought Lucia was hard on course for the Marsh Hurdle, and she was flying at home. It was only after the event we were told that she didn't have a great prep for it. I'm not sure. I think she's very easy to get fit, Lucia. She's lean. The entire family tend to come to hand early, and I think she ran right up to her form in the Marsh Hurdle. Maybe she's capable of a little bit better. If she was short of a gallop, you could say she would do a little better. But I don't think she would take an awful lot of work.
I asked Mick Fitzgerald about it before the race. I said, look, the weather is terrible. I said, she's only tiny. What's this ground going to do to her? He said, believe me, she wants it. So it's now good ground as well. So yeah, I'm pretty much against it too.
Okay. Tell me, did you get chatting to those women at the table next to us after I left?
Did
No?
not. No.
Is there edging towards them ever so
There was no
slowly?
There was no edging.
Yeah. Is your missus watching you? That is the
it'd be a
Pentland
first, but
Top
you never know.
Novices Hurdle. at
Yours obviously is, because you
2:55.
told us you weren't there.
Yeah, I went home early, honestly. Yeah.
Moving on to the 3:30, it is the Marsh Chase, and Fakir Nadare is going for 3 in a row. Can he complete the hat trick at 7-4? Pictory is 11-4. French Dynamite 7-1. Hitman 7-1. Fugitive is 9-1. 10-1 Miller's Bank, and it is 33-1 Manila Drama. Right, Paul Kealy. What do you make of the Marsh Chase as a whole today?
Well, first of all, I should warn people that you should ignore me, because I've got a soft spot for Hitman that I can't get rid of. So that's the one I'm going to back.
He gives out to me for being
The only
loyal.
thing is, loyal. You know, we did discuss this earlier on. Loyalty is a real, enemy of the punter. But none of us can help it. And you get horses in your head, and he's one of mine. I mean, he does travel well. He does like this track. He was obviously second at Fakir Nadare last year. He had a good weight carrying performance when just beaten in the old round chase. He just doesn't win races, does he? The only race he's won this year.
We're going to
he
cure
was
you.
on top.
We're going to cure you. Back off the fags.
However,
Come on.
I backed him. Well, you haven't managed that yet either.
You haven't backed him yet, have you?
Back on, are you?
Yeah. 2 days I lasted. It was great. I'm having another go. Anyway, Fakir Nadare, he's short enough. I know he's won the last 2, but he's short enough for a horse that has sort of indicated that he's not quite as good as he was last year.
Mightn't have to be though.
No, he might not have to be. He's not. It's not. Probably Grade 1 only in name only, isn't it? But he wouldn't have won at Thurles earlier in the year when the Kidnap Ray. Such a good memory. Rory's got such a good memory. Mine's falling apart.
Encyclopedia, that man.
Yeah, and Owen Couleur fell, and he's not a superstar. He's a good horse, but he's not a superstar. And he'd have got beaten by him, so he would be winless. He got thrashed by Shishkin. Okay, no disgrace there, but Pictory was miles ahead of him. So yeah, I'd have to take him on.
I put it to you, Keels, that Joseph O'Brien said at the start of the season that there is one race and one race only that Fakir Nadare is going to be trained for this season, and that is this one. He's a terrific target trainer. This is the one day he might just get him right.
I don't argue, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if he won.
Why would you have a horse that good and only training for one race? What's that all about?
To train him to peak for one race.
Okay.
It's like peaking at Cheltenham. Like certain horses are primed for one specific day. Are you not a believer in that?
If I sent a horse to a trainer, I'd want him to be able to train him for more than one race.
You don't believe that horses are trained to peak on a certain day?
I do, but I find it a bit odd. I'd rather that they ran quite well in a number of races rather than just one.
In fairness, he has run quite well in a number of
races. He has run okay, hasn't he? But he's not quite his usual sort of. He's the ultimate yardstick, this horse, isn't he? Really. Yeah. All right, he's a bit below form when he goes Punchestown, but he hasn't quite been at it, I don't think, this year. He hasn't quite been the same Fakir.
Sorry, I interrupted you there.
Yeah, go on, Paul.
We were getting you over Hitman. Sorry, continue.
No, you can't get me over Hitman. That's the horse I'm going to back. I don't need to say any more. I don't need to say any more than that. It will not surprise me if Fakir Nadare wins. It will not surprise me if Hitman is travelling ever so sweetly going to the second last and then gets outpaced going to the last, which is exactly what happened last year, but I will back him anyway.
So a Hitman for Paul Kealy. I'm expecting just to take out a fag now and just go. Hitman for Paul Kealy. We'll cure him someday. We will cure him, although I'm probably not the best person to cure you considering how loyal I am to my horses. Bruce, what wins the Marsh Chase? Come on.
Well, first of all, it's pretty underwhelming, this race, isn't it? When I looked at line-up, I was like, oh, blimey. And then there's 7 runners. And back in the day, with 7 runners, you groan, don't you? Because you think, well, I can't even have each race. But now things have changed, and there's a number of bookmakers offering 3 places.
Including our sponsors, Paddy
Which is
Perry,
good news
3
because...
places, 4 places.
Yeah, it's good news that, because and this is a minimal betting race. I'd love to believe that Fakir still was the Fakir of old, and you could just back him and he'd win, and you'd think happy days, and that may well happen. 7-4 is a little bit short for me. I'd want him the other side of 2-1, I think. But I think with 3 places... A horse who always runs well here is Miller's Bank, and he'd probably find 1 too good for him, possibly 2 too good for him, but with 3 places, for a horse who's won at this meeting well last couple of years, the trainer says in the paper today he's been underwhelming last couple of times, but underwhelming is you could almost sponsor this race, So I think you might just get away with it.
Underwhelming Chase.
And he might just, at 10-1 with 3 places, I'll go each way Miller's Bank.
Okay, so we've got 1 vote for Hitman, we've got 1 vote for Miller's Bank. Rory, just on Fakir Nadare, and Kevin Blake spoke about this horse in the lead up to this race. He's a little bit worried. he was obviously very keen. He's Joseph O'Brien's racing manager. Very keen on Banbridge yesterday. Was a bit lukewarm on Fakir Dara's. And Kevin, if you're watching, bravo. If anybody saw his performance on Talk TV last night, standing up for horse racing, Kevin, if you're watching, well done, that man. Terrific performance. But Kevin was a little bit worried about Fakir Dara's, thinking, like the lads here, that he's just not as good as other years. Are you in that kind of camp?
Yeah, that's right. My starting point was Fakir Dara's looks a little bit vulnerable. What can I have against him? And I've gone through them all and not been entire. I didn't think I could trust any of them absolutely. Not necessarily in terms of whether they'll put it in, but just in terms of whether the race would bring out the best in them. I do like Fugitive, and he's run really well in two really strong handicaps at Cheltenham. But he's disappointed. He disappointed in the Red Rum last year, and I wonder with good. I mean, good ground's okay for him, but it puts more emphasis on speed, and I think he's a better horse carrying weight in handicaps probably than this. And he was the one I wanted to go with, and I've talked myself out of him again. 7-4 short. I thought Fakir Dara was 9-4 in the place yesterday. I think you end up getting bigger than 2-1 again about him. One thing that has been mentioned, he got an awful ride at Ascot. I don't know what the tactics were, but they were all wrong. He's gone up on the outside of Shishkin. The one thing that he had in his favour was Shishkin had jumped to his left at Sandown. So if you're going to get Shishkin beaten, you'd want to get him jumping left at Ascot, which is a track where if you start jumping left at Ascot, you can lose a lot of ground. And JJ Slevin's gone up on the outside of Shishkin to help him keep straight at the early fences, and then he stayed wide on the track for the rest of the race until coming into the home straight, where he's gone back to the inside again. He couldn't win the way he was ridden that day. He didn't jump very well, but then again, he was always going up wide of horses who were better positioned than him. So he's getting half length at his fences as well. I thought you could put a line through that. Yes, you look at his earlier form, and you think he looks, well, what is he, 3 or 4 pounds worse than he was last year? Not that much. It's just, the fact that he needs a weakish grade 1 to win. When he comes up against we see him against Allaho, for example, and he's not in the same class as an absolute top notcher. But he's tremendously consistent, and even if he has slipped slightly this season, I think he will be a better horse back here again. He's run 3 times at Aintree. He was a good second as a juvenile hurdler.
Yeah.
And he's won this.
Just beaten by Pentland Hills.
Yeah, you can't really knock that at the time. I know Pentland Hills was always the kind of horse he wasn't going to go on beyond his juvenile days, but he was very good in that space of time. So that's a really good run, and obviously he's won this the last 2 years. Good ground will suit. I know he handles heavy ground, but his biggest issue for me is that his jumping's not quite as slick as it might be. And he has to try. You see him jump his fences, he has to really make an effort. He lacks the scope of 1 or 2. But good ground helps a horse like him. It means they don't have to try quite so hard to jump out of it. I think he will bounce back here. It's taken me a while to come round to him. As I said, initially it was like
2.5 minutes.
He's running you close here, isn't he?
Sometimes you start off with an idea. I want to get this horse beat, and then you keep banging at it, and you realise, actually, at the prices, I want to keep him on side.
I think if you keep talking, you'll probably give him no chance in about 30
It's possible.
seconds.
It's possible.
Don't stand for all this, okay? Because I do shows with him, and I ask the question. I go for my lunch while he's setting off for his answers. Honestly,
So true.
But 2-1 or bigger, I'd be with him.
Okay, so it is Fakir Dara's. We got there in the end. It is Fakir Dara's for the shrewd judge that is Rory Delargy. 7-4 favourite currently. I think Fakir Dara's is going to win. I know you two don't, but me and Rory are in the same camp. 2 votes for Fakir Dara's.
DJ, this is the sort of thing where you can imagine Paul Nick. I'm not saying he watches the show, but if he did, he'd be growling. What about Miles?
Yeah.
We haven't even mentioned Pick
Dory.
Dory.
Well, I sort of mentioned. Well, he finished.
Nonsense and good morning, Aintree. What are you at?
He finished well ahead of Fakir Dara's at Ascot, and he jumped really, really well. Then he's a late improvement. He's a late improver. He's got his chance.
Okay, so there you go, Paul. We gave him a mention, Pick Dory. But Keels is a stickler for your old favourite Hitman. That is the Marsh Chase at 3:30. Moving on to the big fences. It is the Grand National, and it is, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I have a producer shouting at me here, but I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Moving on to the Topham at 4:10, and what a race we have in store here. It's over the Grand National fences. Hot on Colours is top weight, but currently we've got a very open market here at the moment. So we have Al Dancer has been well back this morning, Keels.
Yeah, well, obviously he's won the Sefton earlier in the season, didn't he? And he's got a big chance. He jumped really, really well. There's 30 runners in this race, though. It is really hard.
What do you like?
I have backed a couple. The first one I wanted to back was Burrows Saint. because I remember him skipping around here in the Grand National a couple of years ago when he was fourth and not staying, and it's sort of very reminiscent of Live, Love, Laugh, who did that a couple of years earlier and then came and won this race very easily. But he hasn't actually done very much since Burrows Sound. He's been well backed, but I've ended up going for a couple of bigger prices. First one is Phoenix Way of Harry Fry's. Now, he just run 3 very, very solid races this year and come down the handicap despite that. Fourth to Fugitive when Fugitive was rated 133 at Chepstow, fourth again to Il Ridoto and Fugitive at Cheltenham, and then fifth last time at Ascot over 3 mile when he does what he normally does at 3 miles. It looks like winning, turning into the straight and then fading because he didn't quite stay. So I think he's a horse that's very much in form for a 25 to 1 shot and handicapped to win. And D Machine is a similar type, solid jumper, didn't stay the 3 mile in a strong run race at Doncaster last time, but again has been running really well. Was unlucky enough to run into Zanza at Newbury earlier in the season on Coral Gold Cup Day, beating 12 lengths. But again, Zanza was running off 134, I think, then, and he went up to 158 after winning the Denman Chase at his beloved Newbury. So you knew what sort of task he had on his hands there. So I think there's 2 solid jumpers who 2 mile 5 furlongs is absolutely perfect for.
Okay, beautifully put cases for Paul Kealy for 2 big price outsiders. Are you a big fan of these type of races, Bruce? National Fence, this is what these 3 days are kind of about.
Oh, as a spectacle.
Are you a big Topham fan?
As a spectacle, just fantastic.
Glorious.
Really good. It's absolutely superb. It's like a mini Grand National, isn't it? I absolutely love it. I've got to say that I always, when I get to the last 3 races of the Thursday at Cheltenham, I regard that as the amen corner of the festival. You know, it's a really difficult time, isn't it? If you're in trouble, you've got the plate, the mares, and the Kim Muir, and you're like, oh my God, what are we going to do here? And I kind of feel similar to that going to the last 3 races on the Friday at Aintree. It's a hard little stretch if you're behind, isn't it? But with this, I think I'm playing it simple with Al Dancer because he's just got so much going for him. He, as you say, won Sefton in November. He hasn't run since then. It's gone up £5. That's, you know, it's not the end of the world. 24. He's been around forever. He's a lovely horse, very popular horse, but only 24 runs. Completed every single run, or never fallen. I think it was pulled up once. He'll keep running for you. I just think that again he might find one too good, but with a stack of extra places, I think Al Dancer will give you a great run for your money, which is what you want, isn't it? You don't want to, you know, you want to be still there jumping Beecher's second time.
He loved it in December, didn't he? He just poked your eye out the whole way.
I just think this is a horse who knows how to win. He's classy, but he's also gutsy, so he'll do for me.
We're going down together, Bruce. I'm a massive Al Dancer fan. I love the fact that he was kept fresh for this. 2 races this season, Grand Sefton, Topham, bingo. I'm a big Al Dancer fan. Make it 3. Come on, Rory. Have we tempted you in with Al Dancer?
No. Listen, I like Al Dancer. He's a smashing horse, and I'd agree he's the type you're looking for if you're looking at extra places. Whereas mine isn't. He's not. He's definitely not an extra places horse. Wherever he is, at the last fence, he'll be further back at the line. Hopefully,
not a great sales pitch so far, Rory.
Unless he's first at the last fence and still first at the line, which is the plan. He's a little bit of an all or nothing horse, but Fantastic Ass for me has not been staying in excess of 3 miles. And if you look at his form over trips of 3 mile 1 or further, he's been placed once from about 7 starts. His form at 3 miles or shorter, particularly his form around 2.5 miles, is much better. He's never been out of the 3. And he was placed in the Dipper last season behind L'Empresse. And Connections seemed to be convinced he was a marathon chaser after that, despite that career best effort coming over 2 mile 4.5. And this season he's not been showing the same form as he did last. They tried something new with Headgear at Cheltenham last time out, and he showed a lot of dash, I thought, in the Ultima, but he didn't last home again. He raced on the front end. He raced quite keenly. He seemed to enjoy himself, but he didn't get home, and he was well beaten in the end. Not knocked about when his chance had gone. I think the key to him is dropping back to 2 mile 5. He's been screaming out for it for ages, and he's a horse who was rated in the 140s after his run in the Dipper last year. And again, his novice form was solid all the way through the season. He's down to 128 now. He's actually £3 out of the handicap because he's on the minimum of 10 stone 2 here. But his current mark is very lenient if the key to him is the trip. I think he'll get a good position. It's really important in races over this trip, over the national fences, to get a good pitch. It's very hard to come from off the pace. You've got to be handy. His run style will really suit this. The key is whether he's just not finishing his races for physical reasons, or whether he's not finishing his races because he's a non-stayer. I'm firmly in the non-stayer camp, and I expect to see a better performance today.
Okay, beautiful. So it's fantastic as for Rory Delargy, who is, of course, a key member of the From the Horse's Mouth podcast on Paddy Power, and your partner in crime, Ruby Walsh. Let's find out what he fancies in the Topham, and maybe you could have some Racing Post free bets on the Topham. Here's how to get them.
Factor Dudari when he fell at the last, ran okay at Cheltenham. Mikey Sullivan rode him. Burrows Saint didn't look like he stayed in a couple of nationals, and I think this is the idea for him. I thought he ran well enough in Down Royal behind Longhouse Poet and Ryan Mag, who were both in the Grand National. Then you have Ciel de Neige. Don't know what Ciel de Neige's trip is. Maybe these fences or something will spark a bit of life in Ciel de Neige, but he hasn't fulfilled his promise. And Fan de Blue, well, he is the proverbial horse to make a liar out of stable staff, trainers and jockeys. When he's working like a male train, he runs like a goat, and when he's running like a goat, he runs like a racehorse. But anyway, look at Fan de Blue, you just can't catch him. Which one am I going to go for? I think Burrows Saint is a wonderful jumper, and I think this will really suit him.
So you can catch all that on Paddy Power's YouTube channel, and you can also see the quiz, which you've got to watch. You've got to watch the quiz. If you haven't seen it already, have a look at the quiz on Paddy Power's YouTube channel. Rory Delargy from the Horse's Mouth podcast. I shouldn't be saying this as a Racing Post employee, and we do a lot of podcasts, but I have to say, I do sneakily listen to your one every single time. It is very informative.
I just want to say, that was a bit underselling Ruby Walsh, wasn't it, with that caption? Yeah. Ruby Walsh, racing expert.
Who's this Ruby Walsh? Well, he's a racing expert.
I think ex-jockey would have been worse.
Is your caption on the show Rory Delargy, all-time leading rider or something?
No, I have no idea. I have no idea what. I don't think I'm usually captioned at all, to be perfectly honest.
It's good fun though.
It is good fun. Yeah, Ruby's great to work with. He's got a wicked sense of humour that one or two people maybe don't appreciate. But yeah, he does. He does add plenty to that, and it's been an absolute pleasure and privilege to work with him. Hopefully, he won't be listening to this.
God, well, he must be, because you're really
your contract coming up for renewal.
Moving swiftly on to the 440, it is the Sefton Novices Hurdle. It is the 130 favourite. Absolute notions for Gordon Elliott. Maximilian, who I like, is 92, joint second favourite with Stay Away Faye, your Albert Bartlett winner. Your Martin Pipe winner, Iroko, is 5-1. Grey Dawning is 15-2, and it is 16-1 bar. This is a corker. I strongly fancy Maximilian. What do you like?
Well, when we do the Racing Post podcast,
which is very good as well,
you occasionally deign to appear on that, don't you? And
brilliantly hosted.
And what you hate is people going first and making a big case for a horse you fancy, and now I can do it to you, because I love this Maximilian. I really, really do. I thought he was absolutely brilliant when he beat Stay Away Faye. Stay Away Faye's gone on, obviously, to frank the hell out of that by winning the Albert Bartlett. And I think that when you're looking at the Cheltenham Aintree conundrum, I think there's some races you're better off sitting out from an Aintree perspective, and this is probably it. I think that Albert Bartlett was tough, and he really did duke it out, and it was a terrific win. But Maximilian's been having a nice rest since then. And I just think he's terrific value here. I really, really do. I like him very much. I do. We talked about the Martin Piper and that run. Iroko looked so beat, didn't he? And somehow got up and won. So I think he's a proper tool. But I think Maximilian here, I really like him. Bet of the day.
Oh, bet of the day for Bruce Millington. It is Maximilian. I agree. I think he's got a cracking chance. Well, I think two things. Both of them were kind of unlucky in the River Don. Stay Away Faye was very unlucky. Didn't get a good ride. But Maximilian, I thought plenty went wrong for him, and he was constantly pushed towards the inside, and he still managed to win. He's only been beaten once at Sandown in December. He lost the shoe that day. I just think he's been trained for this day.
He's had his win done after that.
Yeah, he's had his win done. Bit like Fakir the Dara. This is the main aim for Maximilian, and I think probably there was 13-2 available yesterday. I know 9-2 is probably a little bit skinnier, but I still think there's a little bit of juice in that price. So Maximilian for me. Rory, are you joining the
I
Maximilian
am,
Club?
oddly enough, I am joining you with Maximilian. I'm
nice.
not. I'm marginally less enthusiastic. I just thought he was.
That's
I
just
thought
your demeanour, Rory.
Yeah, I just thought it was a percentage call, having missed Cheltenham, clearly being aimed at this. I think Stay Away Faye is very good, but that was a really tough race in the Alpha Bartlett, and it's not that easy to back up. Stay Away Faye didn't get an ideal ride at Doncaster. I thought that was a decent performance. I also thought that Hurricane Bay, who was third there, also took the eye. So I thought that I was hoping that would run a handicap. It was in the entries for the 3-man handicap early in the week, but runs in this instead. I think he won't be disgraced. It's a tough old race, though. I just thought, if you need to get one through the place porter, you need a return your each way bet. Maximilian was your obvious starting point, but I could give chances to a load of these. I love Blenkinsop, and he's often looked like he wants 3. Well, he wants 3 miles in good ground, given that he was impressive, in really deep ground at Newbury over shorter early in the season. It took him a while to get his act together. He went handicapping off a low mark, and Henry Daly took full advantage of that. But I think he is a graded horse, without the shadow of a doubt. And he's a player as well. So there are plenty with chances here. I'm not dead set against absolute notions either. So there's plenty of depth in the race. But as I said, if you need to find one horse to carry you through, even if it's just getting through the play spot, I thought Maximilian was that horse.
3 votes for Maximilian.
Come on, Keels.
You can do it. You can do it.
Well, listen, I went round and round in circles in this race, and I decided it was harder than the handicaps, even the Topham. And I got myself in such a muddle doing the show last night that I ended up tipping the wrong horse because I forgot the horse that I was tipping, and I had to go back and do it again. So I came down on Grey Dawning because I just think he's going to improve again for 3 miles. It's not a strong selection at all. This Hurricane Bay was 40-1 yesterday when the decks came out, and is now 16s. Now he was a 16-1 shot in that race at Doncaster with Maximilian Stay Away Faye. He traded to evens in running. It was going really well, so he's got a chance too. But I have liked the way Grey Dawning has progressed with race to race, and he'd be the one for me. So sorry, not Maximilian.
That's all right.
I think I placed him in a handicap at Kempton on Boxing Day because
got a brilliant ride.
He got a very good ride. That was the day when, although Dan Skelton I think had 3
I
winners,
as well.
everything else he had pulled up. So he had. Yeah. So it was a real all or nothing day for him. And I thought, well, you got to lay this for a place at a short price. People are noticing the winners, but not noticing the pulled ups. And of course, too clever for my own good and got filled in.
Oh, hard luck, Rory.
Yeah.
15-2 Grey Dawning for Paul Kealy, but there are 3 votes from the rest of the panel for Maximilian in the Sefton Novices Hurdle. We've got to the finale at 5:15. And it doesn't get any easier, folks. This is a red-hot handicap hurdle. It is 2 miles. It's plenty of pace on here. It's wide open, Paul Kealy. At the moment, Go Dante was your favourite at 7-1. It's now out to 8-1. Paramount is currently your 7-1 favourite for Charlie Longston. JPR1, very impressive last time at 8-1. Then you've got Nibiru from the Tony Martin stable in great form, 17-2. Great Heel for Ted Walsh is 9-1. 10-1 Knickerbocker Glory, 12-1 Bar. Right, Keel, send us home with a winner.
Yeah, I thought there was a bit of a stick out in this race, and that was Washington. He was third in the race last year, having travelled really, really smoothly through it, and he went off 13-2, and that was off a £3 higher mark than he's got now. And in his novice season last year, he had some seriously good form. He was beaten only 2 lengths by I Like to Move It, under 2 lengths by That's All Right Gino, who's turned into a useful novice chaser, and hasn't gone on. Couldn't go a yard on his first 2 starts this year, and I thought he did a lot better when last seen, which was obviously quite a while ago in December, when he was second. Now, he was beaten 12 lengths by Playful Saint, but that was on absolutely bottomless ground, which Playful Saint wants and he doesn't. I think he ran okay there, and he's been given a break since and come back here in first-time cheek pieces, and he's 12-1 now, almost double the price he was last year in a race that's, I don't think it's any better. That race actually worked out pretty well. And I just think he's got a big chance. He's got first-time cheek pieces. Ollie Murphy does reasonably well in first-time cheek pieces. I think 19 of his last 40 runners of it, the first 3 when they've running them. And yeah, I think he's going to run a big race. He likes the track.
Excellent. Washington for Paul Kealy in the night camp. Bruce Millington.
The other Ollie Murphy.
He's got 2 more. He's got
You Can Tango and Go
Dancing.
Go Dante. I mean, I was running on fumes by the end of this. This is a hard card to study, and unlike Keels, you can just sit there and do that. I have all sorts of management duties to take.
Here we go.
No, it's difficult, this punting.
I'd say if you multiplied all our salaries together, we might get there.
Shut up. Exactly. I normally like sitting in your chair and asking the questions. When you actually have to study and research, it's tough going. But anyway, I've gone with Go Dante. I like the connections. You know, you sort of feel trustworthy, don't you, with Ollie Murphy and JJ Codd. I could be falling into the trap of seeing a progressive horse that's been put by for this, where he might just not really have maybe sort of gone on from the promise of when he was fourth in the Challow to decent horses. But it's the least confident fancy of the day for sure, Go Dante. So I'm more than happy to park that and chuck the baton over to Rory.
Okay, we'll all have a kitty for Bruce after the show. We'll throw in a few quid for you. Rory, come on, send us home happy.
I thought this was so hard it had to be over 2.5 miles. That's what I thought.
What was the name of your caricaturist again?
He's Valentine Dial, the man in black.
You're the man in black.
You're the man in black.
I know.
Like Will Smith there.
Yeah.
Hence I do this to remind me, as Johnny Cash said, I wear black to remind me of Valentine Dial. And not to get involved in 2.5 mile handicap hurdles. But this is a 2 mile handicap hurdle, which is good for En Public, who's got a very, very good record at 2 miles and a slightly mixed record at 2.5. His only modest run since bombing out in the Fred Winter, which I backed him for at a big price. Really fancied him in the Fred Winter. He needed a wind operation after that, but his only modest run over 2 miles since then came at Musselburgh New Year's Day this year, and he bounced. He was a very good third prior to that, and the race has worked out well at Sandown, and he's bounced back to form since. Second at Bangor last time over 2.5 to Donald McCain's horse, Jungle Jack, who runs in the 2.5 miler earlier on. Although he kept on well enough, I thought he was coming to the end of his tether there. Sort of chased the winner home, but couldn't lay a glove on him, having been held up. I think he will bounce back to form in a well-run 2 mile race here. He's as high as he should be in the handicap. He's gone up to 138 now. I think it was 117 or something bonkers like that at the start of last season. So he's achieved all he might have, really. I prefer him to be 2 or 3 pounds lower, but he's run very well most of the time this season. By definition, he ends up being one of the complete outsiders in this field. He's got a lot of weight on his back, but Toby Wynn rides him in most of his races, so he knows him well. That's a big plus in a race like this for amateurs and claiming jockeys. And I think he runs well, and while there must be 2 or 3 better handicapped than him, I think he runs into a place given you're getting those extra ones. So it might be 5th or 6th, but he's going to be, I think he'd be 33, 40 to 1 come the off. The other one I was tempted by was Washington, so it's I'm interested in the polls with him. I've always thought he was a little bit soft on a finish, Washington, but the cheap pieces might help him. First time, and the good thing about him, if you're backing him for extra places, he will travel really well through the race, so he won't come off the bridle until late in the day, and that gives you more chance of hitting the frame, or at least getting your money back somehow. So he would be a danger for me. He's just at the opposite end of the handicap. He's bottom weight, but I think En Public will pick up some kind of prize money here.
Excellent. So En Public for Rory Delargy. I think Lan has a chance here. She's a really rapid jumper. I think Aidan Kelly is great value for his £5 claim. That is our finale. Before we move on to our charity bets, have we got a treat in store for you on Saturday, which is tomorrow? It's Grand National Day. Finders Keepers is back. Paddy Power are giving away 150 grand into accounts. Here's what's going to happen.
Thank the Lord. Paddy Power today are dropping 150 grand across the show. All you have to do is check your Paddy Power account. If there's 5 grand in there, whip it out.
Hold it there, Kev, hold it there. We've got names.
How dare they cut across there?
Are you ready? Because I'm ready. Finders Keepers, we're going to reveal some towns, villages, counties, locations.
Matt,
We don't.
We do. Ryan in Dublin has claimed his 5 grand. The illustrious panel here in front of me, you get to decide who gets a 5 grand.
Oh, that's a lot of responsibility. Well, I used to fancy a girl called Amanda.
Let's give it to Amanda.
Amanda, yeah, Amanda. 5 Lodge. I think I broke her heart. A bit of consolation.
I doubt that very much.
Yes, Kevin O'Ryan proper stung me there. Finders Keepers. What a glorious success it was during Cheltenham. 150 grand going into accounts tomorrow for Grand National Day, and Ali Vance will be here to add a bit of glamour to the Good Morning Aintree studio. Ali Vance is going to be here tomorrow. We're going to have finders keepers, 150 grand into accounts. You have got to stay tuned. Bruce, before we come to our naps on day 2 of the Grand National meeting at Aintree, the big one is Saturday. We couldn't afford you on Saturday, unfortunately, to come on the panel. But what do you like in the Grand National?
Do you know what? As with Cheltenham, I do not look at these races in earnest until we get the decks. I don't see the point of trying to find the winners of races 2 weeks in advance.
So you've had 24 hours.
I've had a right good look, and I really fancy one. Velvet Elvis is the one for the money, I'm telling you. He ticks so many boxes. I think this race now, you need a horse that's coming up, and he's a breakthrough horse. You know, these gnarly old chasers, they've had their time, and he's got a massive weight pool with Any Second Now, who was obviously placed in the last 2 nationals. 7 years old, got all the form in the world, and placed in an Irish national, so he stays. 40 to 1 I think you can get. I really, really like Velvet Elvis.
Whoa, I'm all shook up after that. Okay, I'm sorry. That was awful. Okay, Velvet Elvis for Bruce Millington in the Grand National. Charity bets on day 2. One of us got a winner yesterday. Yeah, thank you very much. Shishkin, 150 quid going to our charity. So we want to earn a few more bob for our chosen charities. The charities, first of all, before you're selected your charity, Rory.
Prostate Cancer UK.
Prostate Cancer UK did earn 150 quid yesterday, courtesy of me, with Shishkin. Bruce, your charity?
Very happy to go with prostate cancer as well, so yeah.
Brilliant. And
I am Great Ormond Street.
excellent. So there we go. Now all we have to do is find them a few quid. Rory, what's your nap on day 2 of the Grand National meeting?
Fantastic ass in the 4
Whoa.
5.
Big price too.
Well, it's a big price. I saw 14 to 1 on the screen earlier on. He was 33s when I backed him yesterday. So
Yeah,
he's
that's
obviously
your own fault, Rory.
he's
that
obviously
price
come in
coming
for well. What can you
Paddy will give him 33s though, won't he?
Well, you work for them, so you can ask, okay? So we'll try and get 33 to 1 about Fantasticus for Rory.
I'll take 25s. I'm not greedy.
Okay,
Yeah.
25 to 1 maybe. Bruce.
440 Aintree Maximilian.
Bruce really likes Maximilian. Paul Kealy.
See what he did there? He told you the time of the race.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah. Well, you would have killed me if I hadn't, because I'm always giving it to you for that.
255. Is it 255 or 3
Oh, you better be right now.
255.
What is it?
No looking back. He's got a right chance.
Looking back in the Poundland Top Novice Hurdle. And I'm going for a big one. It's for a great cause. It's for prostate cancer. And I am going for Harbour Lake at 25 to 1. We're going to try and chat to Paddy. We'll talk nicely to him, see can we get 25 to 1 about Fantasticus for Rory Delargy. Harbour Lake for me, no looking back for Paul Kealy. And it is Maximilian for Bruce Millington. So there you go, folks. That is our preview for day 2 of the Grand National meeting at Aintree. This has been Good Morning Aintree. My thanks to Rory Delargy, to Bruce Millington, to Paul Kealy. I've been David Jennings. Don't forget to join us tomorrow, 8:30. It's Grand National Day. You're going to be up early. You won't be able to sleep. Join us at 8:30 on Saturday for Good Morning Aintree. Thanks for watching.